Oh, we got a problem here? We got a problem here? We got a problem there?
I'm scared of you. You scared me. Why is that?
Back in the day, Ice Cube was involved in some of the most intense and legendary beefs in hip-hop, ones that many of his peers will never forget, from smashing Priority Records' office because they didn't want to pay him.
Should have kept your word, Brian.
Jesus Christ, man! What the f are you doing? God damn! I will get you your money, man!
To Cube beefing with Ruthless Record guys after he left. These are the times Ice Cube's beefs took a surprisingly violent turn.
I try not to be a violent person, and
Right, of course.
he just pushed me to the limit.
First up was Ice Cube's beef with Above the Law. After Cube left NWA, Eazy-E signed the gangsta rap group Above the Law, who repped Pomona. Naturally, they inherited the beef.
Ice Cube gets into it with guys from Ruthless.
Right.
And I guess it was at a music seminar. And so I believe that was, you were involved
That's
in all
above the
that?
law. That's above the law.
Tensions started heating up in 1990 while the group was promoting their debut album, Livin' Like Hustlers. During an LA Times interview that April, group member Go Mac threw some shade at Cube, questioning his street credibility.
We had an interview with LA Times. LA Times asked us, what's the sound, what signatures y'all music and everything. I want to say Gomack said, oh yeah.
He claimed that Cube's hardcore lyrics weren't really based on his own life, but were actually inspired by their lifestyle.
We're not like Ice Cube that went away to college and come back and act like this big time gangster in NWA, which at the time that's what he was. You know, he was a dude that was really sharp with the pen, was kind of a schoolboy, you know, never hustled the street.
Cube didn't take the insult too seriously, but he didn't let it slide either. He fired back with a slick response. New Jacks from Pomona should only talk about the 10 freeway, referencing the highway that ran through their city.
LA Times wanted to reply to that. On the interview, he said New Jack from Pomona only talk about the freeway because that's the only thing that's going through that motherfucker.
When the interview dropped, Eazy-E wasted no time stirring the pot. He called up Cold 187 Yum, the leader of Above the Law, and asked, "Did you read the paper?" Once 187 saw it, he was heated.
LA Times said, no, man, you gotta see it. He laughing on the phone. He's a big joke, so he laughing, ah! So I get it, I read the statement.
He told Eazy straight up that he was going to put hands on Cube. Eazy tried to talk him down, but 187 wasn't trying to hear it.
I called E back and said, I'm the boy up. You know, as soon as I see, oh, cuz, don't be tripping. I said, man, that. Real, homie.
As fate would have it, he didn't have to wait long to see Cube in person. That same night, April 7th, 1990, Above the Law was headlining a show at the Anaheim Celebrity Theater, and Cube was backstage doing a magazine interview. In the hallway, he and 187 crossed paths and exchanged a few words, but nothing popped off right away.
Me and him meet up in the hallway, said, what's up, that said newspaper? You trying to play me like a buster or something, homie? Like, oh, you a bitch too. Like I said, what's happening? You want to get down? Oh yeah, what's up?
That changed when Cube later stepped into Above the Law's dressing room and confronted 187 at the doorway. That was all it took. Just like that, a fight broke out.
So he come back into my dressing room and say, what's up? As soon as he say, what's up? I give him to him, a two-piece hot wind. Boom, he falls through the door.
It was a rough brawl, but Cube wasn't backing down. He held his own and didn't let 187 get the best of him. The fight eventually ended, but the tension didn't.
Cube didn't back down either.
No, he didn't. He didn't back down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down.
By this point, Cube wasn't rolling solo anymore. After leaving NWA, he built his own squad, DeLench Mob. These weren't just rappers. They were activists, street dudes, and the kind of people you didn't want problems with.
And when we get to New York, so all the stuff going around the seminars like, oh yeah, DeLench Mob here, and they got issues, whatever, right?
So when Cube and Above the Law ran into each other again at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square for the 1990 New Music Seminar, it didn't take long for things to get violent again.
We see each other going to a panel, right? And we face off right in the middle of the seminar, and we get down. And all hell broke loose.
This time, Cube had stepped away to speak on a panel, but his crew was still around. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and before long, another fight broke out between DeLynch Mob and Above the Law.
Cube was nowhere around. Nowhere around. He tore that whole floor up.
It was a serious brawl, but by the end of it, Cube's side had made their point. After that, Cube didn't seem too bothered anymore. He had reinforced that he wasn't to be messed with. Then there was Ice Cube's beef with Tupac. In the beginning, Cube and Pac were tight. Tupac looked up to Cube as one of the pioneers of gangsta rap, and the two even linked up on a track called Last Words.
Here comes with the rock, the terror, the paranoid. Got to get the wood.
But somewhere along the way, their relationship started to strain, with a series of incidents supposedly causing tension between them.
I dig Ice Cube. I looked up to him. But because I looked up to him and I studied his style, mastered his shit, I know what he's doing is wrong.
Fast forward to 1995. Tupac had just been released from prison and wasted no time making noise in the rap game. He dropped Hits 'Em Up, one of the most infamous diss tracks of all time, where he went straight for the jugular, calling out Biggie and Bad Boy in the most brutal way possible.
Plus, Puffy trying to see me weak, hearts I rip. Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia, some mark ass.
The song cemented his reputation as the most aggressive rapper in the industry at the time. Not long after, Cube dropped his track Bow Down with Westside Connection. The song had a similar aggressive style to Hit 'Em Up, which didn't sit right with Tupac.
Mine, near, get back. Don't mess with my stack, the gauge is racked.
He started feeling like Cube was biting his style, riding the wave that Hit 'Em Up created. But what really got under Pac's skin was the idea that Cube had stayed quiet during the East verses, West Coast beef while he was locked up. Then, as soon as Pac got out and became the biggest name in rap, Cube seemed to come back swinging, just not at the East Coast.
He's a selling, so now he's going on the war. He's using us as the gas. He just dropped all badass. And if you listen to it, you can see he heard Hit 'Em Up and was like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be.
Tupac wasn't the type to let things slide, and from his perspective, it looked like Cube had been playing it safe until the tides shifted.
He wasn't making them bow down when I was in jail. That's what I mean, that's wrong. Right. See, now that's wrong, and I'm not gonna let that happen.
However, despite the tension, there are reports that the two eventually squashed their beef before Tupac's tragic passing in 1996. Next up was his feud with Cypress Hill. The drama started with the Friday movie soundtrack, which Ice Cube curated. One of the standout tracks on the album was Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up, a Cypress Hill song. The group had agreed to contribute that track. But according to Be Real, a member of Cypress Hill, the real problem began when Ice Cube heard another song during their studio session. While listening to tracks for the movie, Ice Cube got a sneak peek of Cypress Hill's upcoming album Temples of Boom. They played him Throw Your Set in the Air, their lead single. Cube loved the song and wanted it for the Friday soundtrack instead. Cypress Hill politely declined since it was the title track for their upcoming project.
Can I get that for the movie instead?
They're like, man, we'd love to give it to you, but you know, this is gonna be the single on our album.
Cube pressed a bit, even asking them to play it again. They did, but they stood firm that the track was off limits. Fast forward to the release of the Friday soundtrack, which came out shortly before Temples of Boom. A friend of B Real's heard one of the songs on the soundtrack and immediately called him, saying, "Did you let Ice Cube use one of your album tracks for Friday?" Confused, B Real explained that they had only given Cube Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up. But the friend wasn't talking about that track. He was referring to something that sounded suspiciously like Throw Your Set in the Air. Skeptical at first, B Real listened to Cube's track, and his heart sank. The hook sounded eerily similar to their song, with only minor tweaks to the lyrics.
The Get High song, yeah, we gave that up already. Why? No. The Throw Your Set in the Air thing. I said, no, we didn't give him that. He goes, well, you know, that is in his chorus in his song.
Feeling betrayed, B Real aired his frustrations in the studio, and word quickly got back to Ice Cube through Mac 10. Cube, trying to address the situation, called B Real to hash things out. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding and the matter died down. Then, Ice Cube later invited B Real to the studio to record a guest vocal for Kaujin, a group signed to Lynch Mob Records. During the session, B Real heard a few lines from a song that sounded almost identical to lyrics from Temples of Boom. He couldn't believe it. Was Cube trying to lift from them again? B Real noticed that Cube seemed to pick up on his reaction because when he stepped out of the room and came back, the lines had been removed. To B Real, this was proof that Cube had been caught red-handed once more.
And I heard a couple lines that were the same things I used on the Temple of Boom record. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's my line. In my opinion, I felt like he saw my reaction, and I walked out of the room for a second to make a phone call. When I came back, the line was gone.
This was the tipping point for Cypress Hill. Be Real went back to his crew, told them what happened, and they decided it was time to take action. The group released No Rest for the Wicked, a scathing diss track aimed squarely at Ice Cube. And what followed was a back-and-forth exchange of diss tracks between them. Then there's his beef with Common. On September 27, 1994, a young Common Sense dropped a track that would go on to make hip-hop history and stir up some serious drama. The song I Used to Love Her was a standout single from his second album, Resurrection. It was a lyrical masterpiece using the metaphor of a girl Common had fallen for to represent his love for hip-hop. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that this girl is hip-hop itself. The track was a hit, especially with the picky East Coast rap crowd, who hadn't been all that impressed with Common's first album, Can I Borrow a Dollar?
Popping Glocks, serving rocks and hitting switches. Now she's a gangster rolling with gangster always smoke.
But while the East Coast crowd was vibing with Common's storytelling, not everyone was feeling the love. The song paints a picture of hip-hop's evolution, from its pure beginnings to its transformation into a more commercialized and gangsta-influenced style. It was a reflection on how hip-hop had changed, but that didn't sit well with Ice Cube. To him, it sounded like a jab at the West Coast dominance of the genre during the 90s.
Created I Used to Love It in 1994. You know, it was a story that I could tell about the evolution of hip-hop and the stages that I seen hip-hop go from just the pure innocent to...
He talking about this girl that he was in love with. You know, she's supposed to be hip-hop, and he's so in love with her. But when she go out here, she get fucked up.
Things came to a head when Common heard through the grapevine that Ice Cube had responded.
King T from the West Coast. And somebody said, yo, Cube dissed you on this song. So we playing the song, and I'm listening. I'm like, damn, this dissing me. And King T was like, nah, he ain't dissing you. I'm like, this dissing me.
The verse King T was talking about was Ice Cube's contribution to Mac 10's track West Side Slaughterhouse, featuring Cube and WC Common decided to fire back with a diss track. And that's how the B and U was born. Common came out swinging with lines like, went from gangsta to Islam to the D of Das FX, calling out Cube for pandering to the East Coast only to turn against it later.
Use higher learning. Don't take my words out of text. Went from gangsta to Islam to...
He dug even deeper with, hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence, accusing Cube of being at odds with the values of the Nation of Islam while promoting street life.
Filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence.
Real. And to end it all, Common delivered the ultimate mic drop by using Ice Cube's own lyrics against him. In the immortal words of one, a B is a B.
Any last words before I hit the switch from the immortal words of one, a B is a...
For Ice Cube, this was unfamiliar territory. He had long been known as one of the most ruthless diss track artists in the game. His scathing takedown of NWA with No Vaseline was already legendary, and his reputation as someone you didn't mess with was solidified. As Doug Infinite put it, if you're going to come at Cube lyrically, you better come with it, or he's going to body you. So I think Com felt that way, being the lyricist that he is. Ice Cube later admitted that he had written a response track to fire back at Common, but fate intervened before it could escalate.
I had a record, man, that was a... And then we ended up having this summit with Farrakhan.
The deaths of Tupac Shakur in 1996 and the Notorious Big in 1997 had cast a dark shadow over the hip-hop world. On April 3, 1997, less than a month after Biggie's tragic death, Farrakhan organized a peace summit at the Nation of Islam's headquarters in Chicago. It was a historic gathering, bringing together some of the most prominent figures in hip-hop, including Snoop Dogg, Thay Dogg Pound, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Nate Dogg, Too Short, Fat Joe, Mac 10, WC, Channel Live, Chuck D, and of course, Common and Ice Cube. Next up is the infamous feud between Ice Cube and NWA, as most fans know already. Ice Cube left NWA in 1989 over money issues. He felt he wasn't being paid enough for all the writing he did on the Straight Outta Compton album, and that led to an ugly fallout. This beef got so intense that it even dragged in people who had nothing to do with their business. One notable example is Dee Barnes, a presenter on the Fox TV show Pump It Up, which covered hip-hop culture and often featured big-name rappers. D's name even came up years later in Eminem's song Guilty Conscience, where he referenced Dr. Dre's attack on her. But let's look at how D got caught in the middle. By the time the Ice Cube drama kicked off, D had already interviewed NWA several times. She was familiar with the whole crew and had covered them on her show for years.
Ice Cube of NWA will be hanging out with him and all his homies at his house.
We'll be back after these commercials or breaks or cuts or whatever.
Whatever. Don't go anywhere.
But once Cube left, things shifted. NWA responded by dissing him hard on their track 100 Miles and Runnin', making it clear they weren't just going to let him walk away quietly. According to Dee Barnes herself, when she got the group back on Pump It Up to talk about their latest moves, the energy was tense from the start. Every question she asked led to a jab at Ice Cube, and it got so heated that the production team had to edit out some of the harsher parts just to make the interview airable. But here's where things took a turn. When the episode finally aired, it included not only the NWA interview, but also another clip filmed earlier on the set of Boys in the Hood with Yo-Yo, who was Ice Cube's friend and collaborator. Unexpectedly, Ice Cube crashed the interview and took the opportunity to diss NWA, using their own lyrics to throw shade right back at them. To make matters worse, Cube even made fun of the Doc, who was close to Dr. Dre and had recently suffered a car accident that permanently damaged his voice.
Ice Cube gon' pump it up. I got all suckers 100 miles and one. I'd like to give a shout out to the DLC.
For the record, even at the time, Dee Barnes said she didn't think they should air that segment, but as just a presenter, she didn't have the final say over the edit. Unfortunately, the final edit sensationalized the story by playing the two clips back to back. After Ice Cube's interview aired, Dee turned to the camera and mentioned that she's always in the middle of controversy.
Always in the middle of controversy, right? Everyone's pumped it up.
This was likely a reflexive response to an awkward situation, but in the edit, it looked like she was stoking the flames, encouraging the beef between Ice Cube and NWA, and positioning herself right in the middle of it. After the interview fiasco, some time went by, but Dr. Dre and Dee Barnes eventually crossed paths again. At a Def Jam Records party, a drunken Dr. Dre spotted Dee Barnes. Still furious about how the interview had been presented, he flew into a blind rage. According to Rolling Stone reporter Alan Light, in an article called Beating Up the Charts, Dre picked her up by her hair and began slamming her head and the right side of her body repeatedly against a brick wall near the stairway. His bodyguard held off the crowd with a gun, ensuring no one could intervene. Dre then tried to throw her down the stairs but failed. Undeterred, he began kicking her in the ribs and hands. Dee managed to escape and ran into the women's restroom, but Dre followed her, grabbed her from behind by the hair again, and proceeded to punch her in the back of the head.
Oh, and then Dre had dragged her around the corner into like this bathroom stall and started kicking and stomping and punching her.
They grabbed me by my hair and started slamming me up against the wall. It's a painful and traumatic experience.
This vicious attack didn't go unnoticed. Members of NWA openly discussed the incident in subsequent interviews. MC Ren bluntly stated, "She deserved it, deserved it." Eazy-E echoed this sentiment, saying, "Yeah, had it coming." Dr. Dre himself was unapologetic, saying, "People talk all this ish, but you know, somebody F with me, I'm gonna F with them. I just did it, you know? Ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it. Besides, it ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door."
If she get, I hope she get it again. She got beat down. The person, the host of that show, did something and she know what she did and got beat down, and I hope it happened again.
Dee Barnes tried to sue Dr. Dre for $22.75 million, but the case was settled out of court.